Hello, everybody, and welcome back to this episode of Heresy Hammer. I am Rob, and it's a little bit different today. We didn't have an introduction to the video, and I'm on my lonesome. You can't even see me, in fact, and that is because I am recording from down under. So we have had a little break from Heresy Hammer. That's mainly because I've been away. Although Kerry and Lee did a whole hour-long episode for our patrons all about the changes to terrain, which sound fascinating, scary, and makes me feel all sorts of emotions as well. But I'm not going to be talking to you about terrain today. Oh no, I'm going to be talking to you about the top 5 unit glow ups for the Legions of Astartes. Now, what I haven't done is chosen units that are particularly overpowered. I think are really, really strong. I've chosen units that I think are going to have had a bit of a glow up, but actually are going to be a lot of fun to play. And actually, it's just really nice to see these units play and possibly play a more prominent role in the new edition. And I'm going to talk through my top 5 that I'm looking forward to try out, put into my army. I'll talk about how they can be used as well. Within your list and what role I think they can be used within the list. But as I say, I don't think these are particularly overpowered, but I think they could be a lot of fun. And I think that actually, if you made these in the previous edition as well, I think they're probably going to play a more prominent place in your list building. So let's get into it. So the Contemptor. Now, some of you might be thinking, the Contemptor, did it really have a glow up? Well, let's be honest. I think there's going to be fewer Contemptors being used and fewer Dreadnoughts being used this edition than previous editions. Or at least the previous edition. I think that they're still pretty hardy. They've got that 2 up, 5 up, but they did take a little bit of a beating when it came to their ballistic skill and their weapon skill as well. So my hunch is that actually we're going to see Contemptors less prominent in a close combat role unless you're a World Eaters player or maybe a Space Wolves player. But I think that realistically we're going to see more of or even more of the double shooty Contemptor. And I think that this is going to go into 3 areas, really. So we're definitely going to see Contemptors that throw out blasts. So I think the conversion beamer is still going to remain popular at range. That 30 to 45 inch range, I think, is going to be popular. But I also think the Gravis plasma cannon, I think, is going to be really popular as well, just because of the changes to hits, and you're just more likely to hit than you were previously. But that's not the version that I want to talk to you about today. I want to talk to you about the double Gravis bolt cannon. So something that I rarely saw, I've never used in a game before, but I think is going to play a much more prominent role, and that's just because of its high number of shots. So I think the fact that it is BS4 now just means that you're more likely to choose a Contemptor with a high number of shots. I don't think the bolt cannon is particularly overpowered, but I think it is a formidable infantry killer now, and I think that that's paired with the fact that our tactical units and tactical squads, breacher squads, veteran squads, they can't take artificer armor. At least they don't have access to it. Sure, you can put a centurion in or a consul in that does have access to artificer armor, but just those base units, we're going to see less artificer armor. So I think there's more of a place for these kinds of weapons. So the Gravis bolt cannon. So it's 36-inch range, as you'd expect a kind of like a heavy bolter to be. It's 6 shots apiece. So usually it would be 12 shots from a double version of these. It's strength 5, it's AP4, and they are 2 damage, which I really like. Like, it's the damage 2 that I think that really makes this special. A Terminator that doesn't make a save, doesn't make that 2 up, it's going to go straight down to one of these shots. And what I really like about it as well, it's heavy firepower as well. So if it stays still, it gets an extra shot. So you're looking at actually 14 shots from one of these, which I think is really, really nice. And as I say, I think it's going to be a formidable infantry killer at range. You're not going to need to get this into or close to the enemy. And I think if you're an Imperial Fist player, I think these are going to be one to watch out for. So definitely one I think is in my list of units to try, and the double Gravis bolt cannon I think got a real glow up, so I'm looking forward to trying it. Right, next up, Flamers are back. So we knew that Flamers are back anyway. I think in 2.0, Flamers suffered from the fact that Artificer armor just existed. And you can say that a lot about any weapon that was kind of AP3, AP4, AP5, AP6. But also, it suffered another major problem, which is because it was a template weapon, heavy units could reroll their armor saves against them. So, Flamers kind of got like a double hit. That Artificer armor combined with that heavy reroll just meant that they became near useless, and you just rarely saw them. Outside of ZM, I never really saw Flamers, with a few exceptions, of course, which were Salamanders. The fact that they had Dragon Breath Flamers that were +1 strength, it kind of encouraged Salamanders players to play to the theme, but they weren't massively popular. But heavy support squads and support Flamer squads, I think, have had a glow up. And again, it goes back to the fact that the lack of access to Artificer armor on those tactical units, on those there's assault squads, on the veteran squads, really means that I think that these have more of a place, combined with the fact that they now cause panic 1. So just focusing on the heavy flamer and the normal flamer on the support squads here, they are relatively cheap. And also, I believe I'm right in saying that templates can be used in volley fire as well. So there doesn't seem to be any interaction between snapshots and templates now. So I think that I'm right in saying that templates can just be used in volley fire. I'm happy to be corrected on there. So that will make them rather lethal when being assaulted. So definitely one to look out for. I would, if I were you, consider small squads of 5 in rhinos. I think I was having a discussion with a friend the other day, and I was all for putting 40 heavy support and support flamers into a salamanders list, but they said, look, consider overlapping flamer templates. If you have 10 guys in there, it's going to be actually quite difficult to get all of those guys shooting their templates. So consider small squads of 5 in rhinos, and you might want to consider combining it with some fear. So there are a couple of units that cause fear. The first one and most obvious one to me is actually the telepathy librarian. It just comes with fear 1 built in, but also a herald now also has fear 1 as well. So if you can create some fear bubbles combining the panic 1, that's going to be really good for negating maybe high leadership or middling leadership, causing people and causing those units to be routed as well. So I think flamers are back, and it's really nice to see, or hopefully see, those make a more prominent role. I think the other one I would consider, I haven't written it down here, but just off the top of my head, I do wonder whether small flamer units in drop pods might be quite viable now. You just stick one small heavy flamer unit into a drop pod, comes down, flames attack squad, and hopefully gets them off an objective, or at least routes them. I think could be a really, really interesting choice, particularly for those units that love flamers. Next up, so tarantulas. Tarantulas were just terrible in the previous edition. They didn't really have a place. I saw maybe one person in the hundreds of games that I played, maybe one person take tarantulas at an event. And that was only because Alpharius was able to infiltrate them. But now they come with a whole raft of rules, including Infiltrate 9. They also come with Expendable 3, and they are also BS4 as well. One of the major problems in the previous edition was that they had such a pathetic ballistic skill, but now they have ballistic skill 4. And actually, we're just in a world of ballistic skill 4. So the fact that actually they're just equal to a normal marine is actually really, really nice. They are an easy kill. In terms of they are 10 all round, I believe. So they're pretty easy to kill, in shooting. But it does mean that if your opponent is shooting at a tarantula, it does mean that they're not shooting at something else in your army. But due to the fact that they've got expendable, your opponent's unlikely to go for them in the opening salvo in the first turn of the game to get those easy kind of first strike and first kill points. I also think that Infiltrate gives you a lot of flexibility around placement as well. the fact that they're infiltrate 9, I think you can kind of hide these away in buildings, or hide them away behind buildings in useful places to you. I'll talk about why that might be in a little bit, but it just gives you a little bit of flexibility, which I think is nice. They have the ability to overwatch and intercept, but those will obviously cost one of your reaction points. I'm not necessarily sure using one of your precious reaction points on a Tarantula for Overwatch and Intercept is worth it. But the most interesting rule is the automated fire, which is a free advanced reaction. You've heard that right. It is free. Okay, it doesn't cost you anything. I think that actually, if you're an Ultramarines player and you're looking to stack reactions and really leverage the fact that you get a free reaction in your army, auger squads I think are going to be interesting, but also these are going to be really interesting choice as well, because of the fact that the automated fire is a free action. And what that basically means is that it targets a unit in your opponent's turn when they move within 48 inches range or within weapons range. So it does say specifically 48, when they move within that 48-inch range, you can then shoot at them in the movement phase. However, if your weapon is limited to 45 inches, I'm going to assume that actually it then becomes 45 inches. For the melter, which is I think off the top of my head is 18-inch range. If you move within 18 inches, then you can shoot at it, right? So, as I say, it's a free reaction. They're relatively cheap. I mean, the base cost is 45 points, I believe, for 2 tarantulas, and they can be deployed separate from one another. Those 2 tarantulas just take up one slot, but unlike what we would understand as a Talon previously, they can be separated and deployed as they want. These will be extremely valuable against drop podding units as well, as the unit moves out the pod in the movement phase, which means the tarantulas can then shoot at them in their turn without expending any of your reaction allotment. I think for me, I am going to be putting probably in most of my list just to future-proof my force against drop pods, which I'm quite fearful of at the moment. I've seen people talk about melter squads in drop pods. So in order to combat that, I'll probably be putting 2 or 4 in a list, and I'll probably be choosing Volkite because I think it's probably the best anti-infantry option. But again, it's just about future-proofing. They're relatively cheap. I think the Volkite option on one Tarantula is an additional 15 points. And I think as a result of it will be good to future proof. I also think they just look cool. Like they've had the whole vibe of them just looks great. I think they probably will get killed quite quickly, but there are going to be games where you use them and you just go, these things cannot be killed because your opponent misses, and also they've taken a number of scalps as well. And I just think they're just quite a fun little unit that you can take. And I think that also, depending on the tarantula that you buy or paint or convert, you can add it on top of a tank and create a new unit, as we saw within the Journal Tacticas as well, which I think is really, really nice. So yeah, I think that this has had a total glow up for me. I think that I'm going to be investing in a number of these across an army. I really like here as well, just so this is a complete aside, the fact that the Games Workshop team have gone for like a silver and black look. So they're kind of Legion agnostic. So if you just have a set of these, 4 of them, then you can use them for whichever army that you're choosing. So I think that's really nice. But as I say, I think this is going to be a real fun and fruity unit to take. And I recommend 4 of them with Volkite. Right, next up. So this is I'm currently in Australia right now, and I'm about to teach about 30 to 40 guys how to paint Catos. So this is a really important one for me, especially with the longevity of the Catos course. But it's really nice to see the Catos in its rightful place. Like, it was the brand new tank, one of very few new units that we saw in the new edition for Space Marines, in terms of a brand new tank that we hadn't seen that was already previously in resin. It was always a little bit expensive, and you were probably always going to upgrade it with a flare shield to make it more survivable, and then it made it even more expensive. However, with the changes to vehicles, it looks like it's going to be more survivable, and it does have a whopping 10 hull points now. And I think off the top of my head, that's actually double the amount of hull points that it's had, and it's much more worthy to have 10 whole points, I think. It can move 8 inches, but it is stable. So it's classed as basically staying stationary for all its shooting weapons. It's also 14 all round as well. So the same as a Spartan and the same as a Land Raider. And I'm sure you've seen how tough those Spartans and Land Raiders are going to be to take down now. Melter, you shoot some Melter into this. Sure, it has armor bane, but you're still hunting for those 6s on that armor pen. So I think these are going to be anything that's armor AV14 is going to be very survivable. You should, I think, consider the Melter and Las Cannon option. It is the most expensive of the options. The Las Cannon now, like Sponsor and Las Cannons, I think is around 25 points. And the Melter cannon on the turret is a whopping 30 points. However, the one that I'm actually most interested in using is the option that you can see here, which our producer Kerry painted on one of my Catos courses, which is the Volkite Cardinal, which is completely free. You can swap out swap this out and it's not going to cost you anything, unlike the Melter. The Volkite sponsons, which I think are 15 points for 2 sponsons, and then the autocannon shoulders. I know they're not officially called shoulders, I think, in the Libras, but I've called them shoulders here. So a couple of reasons why. So the Volkite sponsons, so the Volkite, if you stay still, gains more shots, and the autocannons, if you stay still, gains more shots. However, this tank has stable, so you can move and still gain all your shots. So that means that it's going to be extra firepower being pumped out. It's really nice as well that the coaxial autocannon is an autocannon. So it gives you another autocannon. So I think that combination is really nice. I've talked about in previous shows. Perhaps I've talked about this on the Patreon, actually, the fact that I think that autocannons are going to play a really important part about kind of tagging and causing tactical statuses on AV11 to AV13. I think that you're going to find that people are really choosing those autocannons to tag vehicles. But the Cardinal itself is a really interesting weapon. So it's got 12 shots, it's deflag rate, it's strength 7, so it's going to be wounding most things on 2s. It's AP 5, fine, whatever, but it is damage 2, which I think is really nice. If we circle back to that conversation that we had about damage 2 on the Gravis bolt cannon. The fact if a Terminator just fails to save on one of those, it's just like, yep, it's gone. It is also suppressive 1 as well, which is really nice. So remember, with suppressive, your opponent doesn't need to lose any wounds. You just need to hit them, I believe. And then that will cause a suppressive check at the end of the turn. So I think this is a really, really interesting option. One I think you guys should have a look at. And it's really nice to see the Catos play a really prominent role, or hopefully a more prominent role in this edition. I know most lists that I'm writing have actually got 2 Catos in, the Volkite option and the Melter option as well, which I think it just looks really cool. And it's a really nice centerpiece model as well that that isn't straying into kind of like Fellblade territory. Right, final one. So I've talked a lot about this one before. I've mentioned it a couple of times, which is the Cberus. So the Cberus is just such an awesome looking model, an awesome looking tank. It is now, or it is a super heavy. I think it's around 400 points. It can move 10 inches. And one of the many rules that super heavy kind of encompasses is the fact that it is counted as stable. So it doesn't say the word stable, but for all intents and purposes for this conversation today, essentially it's stable. So it can move, and then it is counted as stationary. So it's really nice that it can move 10, because you're going to be able to kind of like move around buildings, after kind of like hiding it away, and then you're going to be able to shoot the things that you want to shoot. So it is also interesting as well. So I was just been reading up in the rulebook. So for super heavies, you don't roll on the damage table for tactical statuses. You just lose 1 whole point. So it's more likely to be able to keep on firing. But something to bear in mind, I believe that super heavies are still susceptible to shock. So if you've got something shooting at this that has shock suppressed, for example, the likeness is that this will be snap firing the following turn. So just bear that one in mind. You don't suffer tactical statuses in the usual way on the vehicle damage table, but I think shock is going to be really the Achilles heel on a lot of these super heavies. That's an aside there because I want to talk about the glow up. And let's talk about the main weapon. So I've talked about this before, but the neutron laser battery is going to be an absolute Spartan and Kratos killer. So it's got 72-inch range. So bear in mind that you're combining that with the 10 inches of its move. It's got 3 shots, and I suppose this is one of the weaknesses of this, isn't it? Which is that actually, you've got 3 shots. Is BS4. 2 shots are likely to go through unless you're particularly lucky. But you've got to be able to hit, and you've got to be able to do the armor pen or the wounds, because otherwise I think that it's going to be not do as well as you would expect for a 400-point tank. But I think I'm just looking at the damage potential with this tank, and I think that it could be a lot of fun taking this. It's strength 10, which is really nice. Not a lot of things can get to strength 10. It's AP2 and it's damage 3. However, it is ordnance D. So if it stays still, it doubles the amount of damage. So actually that's damage 6. And remember, because it's a super heavy, it is essentially, it's not stable, but it is essentially stable. So it's always going to be pretty much firing at damage 6. It's got a number of rules as well. So it's also got armor bane, which is really nice. So any glances that you do are just automatic pens. And it's also got shock suppress. So that conversation that we just had about the shock suppress being the bane of super heavies, this is going to be a bane of a super heavy, right? Because the fact that it's shock, with a shock, any 5 or 6s to hit, it will just cause that tank to be suppressed. It's also got overload 1. Yeah, fine, whatever. With such a destructive tank like this, you'd expect it to to have something like overload in it as well. So I think this is going to be a really cool tank. Again, it's one of those ones which are really awesome centerpieces. I think you can do a lot just with the paint job on this. Lots of cool stuff with it, and it's really nice to see it play such a prominent role. And I think that if we see a rise in the Spartan bang burst, which I suspect we're going to do, lots of lists I'm seeing at the moment is just basically a Spartan pack with Terminators or command squads or massive units. I wonder whether we will see the rise of the Cberus to be able to combat that quickly and early, just to try and take that Spartan down. So that's it for today, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this little episode on kind of top five vehicles and top 5 glow ups. I have no doubt that you guys will think of many other units that have had glow ups as well. These are just the ones that stand out to me, but also combined with the fact that actually I just think they just look a lot of fun as well. Just to say thank you to our top tier Patreons. So we, of course, run a Patreon, which helps us do all the things that we do over here at Heresy Hammer. We've got some absolutely massive and exciting news coming up very, very shortly. If you follow our Instagram pages or you are on our Patreon already, you may have seen what that exciting news or got a little hint of what that exciting news is, but more on that a little bit later. But just a big thank you to our top tier patrons, and in fact, all of our patrons who allow us to continue to make the show. We really, really appreciate your support. And if you've enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like the video and leave a comment. Maybe you can leave a comment saying, "Hey, Rob, I think you're completely a lunatic for thinking that a Contemptor with a Gravis bolt cannon is going to be a good option." Or you might think, you know what, I'm going to add to that list by telling you another one that I think has had a little bit of a glow up as well. Maybe Seekers are one you're going to try that you never tried in the previous edition because of its shot selector now. Don't forget to support us via Patreon. We have a lot of fun things and conversations going on our Instagram, but also on our WhatsApp chats as well. If you've got any questions that you want to submit, then you can do that at heresyhammer30k@gmail.com. You can always listen to us on Spotify. We usually upload the YouTube version first, leave it a couple of days, and then it goes over to Spotify. And also, if you're looking for any events in the UK to attend for 3.0, make sure you head over to heresyhammer.com and you can go and have a look at the UK events calendar, not just for Heresy Hammer events, but for all of the events in the UK. And if you are an event organizer listening to this or watching this right now, make sure you head over there and put your event on there. It's just a simple Google form, and then we will do the rest. We take no money whatsoever. It is a community project. We just want to see cool people turn up to cool events, and we want as many of those cool people to turn up to as many of those cool events as possible. Anyway, guys, take care, and I shall see you on the next one.